Hey guys, now we're going to be talking about Dot Stone this week as well. Yes, episodes 13, 14 and 15, which cover basically the Grand Bout, the tournament, the little mini tournament arc, which when watching those episodes, I was surprised of how quick that actually went. I remember it being I feel like it was a little bit longer in the actual manga itself, but no, it's not. It's only about, like, I'd say less than 10 chapters in the less than 20 chapters in the manga, like 15 chapters at most, or something like that. So it was no wonder that they were able to get through the no, not even 15 chapters, 20 chapters. It was less than 10 if memory serves me. Yeah, wait a minute. 3, 6, 9. Yeah, less than 10 chapters basically. So we go, wow, that was quite the mini tournament, if I ever do say, but it was still a tournament nonetheless. So Dr. Stone basically got their tournament arc out of the way relatively early on in the series, and I'm surprised about that. But anyway, guys, let's talk about what's the difference between the anime and the manga. Now, the first major difference that we don't get in the anime is the fact that we don't get this little part here with Senku and Chrome. How Senku's basically explaining about, now we break down salt water with electricity, and Chrome's like, you lost me a few steps back, man. And he's like, here, I'll explain it one of these days. You'll pick it up quick. And again, I feel like the reason why they didn't include that in the anime was because I feel like in the anime, Senku has a bit more faith in Chrome than he does in the manga at this point. Because again, Senku even states that Chrome's the only one, if he was ever to die, to carry on his legacy in a sense, and basically say, like, look, if I die or something bad happens to me, you have to lead the kingdom of science in terms of the scientific nature and how it all comes together, Chrome. So I feel like that's probably why they didn't include that in the actual anime itself, because like I said, Chrome, I feel like, gets a little bit more respect from Senku at this point. Plus, also, I feel like they were more focused on scaring the crap out of Suika right there. Which, Suika's my favourite character. Just seeing her like that, just like, is a little bit hilarious. And then having Kokaku go, you're gonna let my sister drink that, all that stuff that can turn you into zombies, make you blind and melt your flesh. You're gonna make my sister drink that. So I feel like that was probably more what they were actually focusing on at that point. And another thing that they actually don't include is, if I can actually find it, I had it right here. No, I think I've actually lost it. Let me. Oh, no, wait, I found it, guys. It's right here, right this point here. Now, that image of Senku, that's a direct reference to Sunken Rock, because basically that's pretty much how Bocce, who's the artist of the actual manga itself, that's basically his style that he uses for Sunken Rock, and it's amazing the artistry that he's able to just develop on this series, and you can tell that even to this day they still enjoy writing and drawing this series together. Bocce and the author Inagaki, who's the author of Ice Shield 21, which I've not read yet, but I've heard is very underrated, and I may get to that at one point in the future. But yeah, again, they don't include that in the anime, and I feel like that's like a big misstep, because that's actually that people might actually be like, oh, okay, so that's from Sunken Rock, I've read that manga, that's pretty good. Oh, it's the same author that writes this, cool, I like it even more. I feel like not included that kind of like takes away from a bit of a moment, a bit of a reference from the author's other works that should be appreciated, because even though I've not finished Sunken Rock, what I've seen so far, like, I'm very impressed with the artistry and the way the storytelling that Bocce does with that artistry. Now, another thing I noticed is the fact that there's no build up to the actual P joke. It's kind of like in the anime, they just go, don't worry, the next Kimiko ain't too bad. Time to get some anime, I can't pronounce that word, but basically time to get some pee, and they're basically just peeing into the pots. And Kokaku's like, basically the same as me there. Ama on ni, and where do you get that from? Maybe it's the best if you don't know. And then it just shows Senku and Chrome actually peeing into the pots, and then we get the end of the joke. It's like, and you're planning to have my sister drink that, basically drink pee. So again, but there's no build up to the joke. They just go to the punchline rather than actually just building up a little bit more, which again I find is a missed opportunity in that regard. Also, one thing that I was completely confused on is this part right here with Senku, Chrome, and Kokaku, where they're talking about, all right, we have every spot filled in. We basically only have 3 more to go: sodium bicarbonate, aniline, and acetic hydrogen. Again, it's hard for me to even say these words because of my dyslexia, but I'm trying my best here, guys. But anyway, in the manga, Kokaku's the one says no clue what they're all about, but it sounds like an incantation. Whereas in the anime, it sounds a lot more like Suika saying it's like casting a spell. So again, I'm not sure whether they intended for Suika to actually say that line or not, or whether it was Kokaku who sounded a little bit like doing a Suika impression. Then either way, it's something that I noticed, and I thought it was something that could actually be part of this episode to show like what's the difference again. And also we get more shots of Ginro and Kinro training in the anime than we do actually in the manga. Now again, I don't really mind this because they include basically everything from the manga, so if they still have time over to add those little bits in of just a little bit more of training, then fine with me. Again, they're not taking away anything from the manga. They're just adding little bits on, but not too much so that it's constantly distracting us with filler scenes. So again, they're only few and far between here, and again they just add more to the world building around them to show like, okay, they're still doing this training and they're getting better at it for when they actually get to the grand bout. Now, in the manga, it's just basically a narration at this point when Senku first enters the village, like first steps foot into the village, where it goes, it's been 5 months since he arrived, but that day, for the very first time, Senku set foot in the village. Whereas in the anime, it's actually Kokaku that says this. Again, I feel like it was just included because I feel like they couldn't find a way to include a narrator just coming out of nowhere, since they actually cut the narration portions from earlier on in the manga. But also as well, one thing that I do hate as well is the fact that they cut out a little bit here with Kieran and Kiro and Magma. Sorry, I was trying to find the way of actually saying it without actually stumbling on my words, even though that's what I'm doing right now, guys. I apologise for it, but anyway. So yeah, remember when I said I don't mind them adding in anime filler as long as they don't cut anything. Yeah, this is an example of one thing that they absolutely desperately needed that they could have just actually kept in. They could have just added just a tiny. It would have only taken like about 10 extra seconds. But yeah. We have Shuffle, basically the girl with the tooth like that, and the two like ponytail hair. Basically like her name's Shuffle for anyone who just watches the anime. But anyway, guys, she goes and says, right off the bat, it's the main event, Kiron versus Magma, and this is why we get the explanation of why it was actually them and why it wasn't what the guys actually hoped for. It's that there were a lot of dropouts since Magma and Kokaku are clearly a cut above the rest, and it's the top 2 contenders for Chief. The first match is essentially gonna decide it all. So basically, that's the reason why it's Kiron versus Magma right off the bat. And that was the end of Volume 4, so now, moving on to Volume 5, which, for those of you who know, when I do get my poster for... Well, I've actually got the poster. When I do actually get the frame for the Dr. Stone videos, when I actually do start doing reviews of Dr. Stone, the manga, this volume cover is actually going to be the one that's actually there where Promised Neverland is, because it's the only cover where I feel like it represents the series. Like, it has Senku fought in the center, and it has basically essentially the main cast of the series basically rallying behind him there. So that was the cover that was the picture I decided on for what would essentially be the replacement for the Promised Neverland. But anyway, guys, let's move on to Volume 5 now. We start off Volume 5 with Suiko's escape, but in the anime, that actually comes back. That actually comes basically after this part right here, where we have Senku being outed for wanting to help Kieran in the match. Now, I feel like the only reason like they swapped that around was basically because it just moved it. It just made more sense to actually have it there rather than cutting away from this part right here where Kieran's basically jabbing at Magma, basically trying to get him off balance so they can actually win the match. So again, I don't mind them changing things around as long as it actually flows a lot more smoothly, and in this case, it certainly does. And now here's one of my favourite moments from Suiko, where she actually gives her mask to Kieran. This was the moment where I was like, okay, this is my favourite character, when she actually gave the mask to Kieran. But yeah, in the manga, we actually get a clear idea of how she's able to fit herself in that mask. She basically scrunches herself up body, so she's basically like a ball within a ball essentially. So that's how she's able to get into the mask in the actual story itself. That's the reason why, because we actually see her hands and feet actually kneeling down together in that moment. Whereas in the anime, all we get is basically that right there, where it's just a dark void. And I really think that could have just been included so that people could get an idea of like, for the anime only people, it's like, oh, okay, so that's how she's able to do that skill that she actually has. And also in the anime, Kieran actually doesn't do what he does here, which is basically grab the mask and basically put it on. He just and the mask actually slots onto his face, which I feel like is a bit more badass than what actually happens in the manga. So again, I can praise the anime for doing certain changes, as long as I feel like they make the character seem a little bit more badass, and in this case, it actually does. Now, the last 2 points for episode 14, which I want to talk about, is that there's no mention of prescription, which basically is here. Those lenses were made for Suiko. The prescription's probably off, but that's okay for now. Which Senku actually elaborates again, reminding people that okay, even though these glasses may actually work because of the fact that people need certain prescriptions for their eyes, it may actually be a lot more different for him. But for now, because he's only using it to actually win this match, it's okay at this moment in time, and it's not a permanent thing. And eventually, Kieran does actually get his own set of glasses. If people have seen the anime at this point, they know that Kieran actually does get his own set of glasses from Senku that work for him basically. And the last thing I want to talk about is right here where Kieran's like, I am grateful for the power of science to Suiko and to Senku. In the manga, it only shows Senku's face, whereas in the anime, it shows Suiko's face as well. Again, I feel like that's a part in the actual manga that I really wish would have actually been in to show like how valuable of a player and how valuable of a main character that Suiko is. And yes, I'm still calling Suiko a main character, even though my anime lists her as supporting. No, she's a main character. She's done a lot for the series, and she's beneficial. And without her in the series, the characters wouldn't be where they are right now. Basically, when in the current arc right now, they wouldn't be anywhere without Suiko. So yeah, she is a main character, valuable member to the Kingdom of Science, and I feel like she's gonna be there till the end of the series. Like the series is not gonna get rid of her. Like they're not gonna, after Treasure Island, they're not gonna go back to say, okay, bye Suiko, and then go off. No, she's there to stay, and I'm happy for it. So now, in terms of episode 14, not much really to talk about with episode 14. Like I said, these episodes were pretty much adapted verbatim. A few little things were cut out, but there's one thing I want to talk about. I did have a point that says sounds like Senku in anime, but should be Suika. Now I can't remember exactly what line that actually was. So if someone actually wants to talk about that, feel free to be my guest and leave it in the comments. But the thing I want to talk about is the new opening. And again, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that we're actually getting as far into the manga as we are. So my guess is that they're actually going to stop at the moment where they're actually going to start making the cell phones. I feel like that's a pretty good point to stop, or possibly after that point, because again, in the anime they show Taiju and Yusuriya by a gravestone. So and that is after they make the cell phones, or just right before they're ending to make the cell phones. So whether or not it ends up volume 7, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. I feel like it will end up volume 7, or possibly at the end of volume 8. We don't know, but whatever the case, I'm glad the series is not just stopping at the end of the Ishigami village arc, or the end of the finding out the origin of the village arc. I feel like we can go a little bit more, and when we get into the Stone War, which will probably be episode 18. We don't know. We don't know how long the flashback is going to get on, but that'll probably be something to really look forward to, because that Stone War, I feel like, is one of my favourite arcs of the series. Like one of my favourite sagas of the series, the Stone War saga. But for right now, I might as well tell you what my favourite arc is. My favourite arc is the current arc at the moment, the Treasure Island arc, which is a phenomenal arc. It's just taking the series to great heights, and I feel like the series is going to be around for a long time, because the possibilities are endless. Just the fact the world has reset itself, and what's out there in that world, we don't know, but we're going to be finding out along with the characters themselves. But yeah, new opening. I don't like it as much as Good Morning World, the first opening. I can't even remember the title of the episode, the title of the opening, but it's still a decent song, and the images that we get are really phenomenal and just showcase what is actually to come in the series once we pass the Ishigami village arc. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about is this line right here from Kukaku, when she's talking about Kiron. No, not Kieran. Giron standing a chance against Magma. And in the manga, she says, honestly, not really. Whereas in the anime, she says, tough instead of that, which again, I feel like is pretty much just to establish the fact that I feel like the anime characters have a bit more trust in each other than they do in the manga itself. But again, it's nothing really that big of an issue in hindsight. But it was a change that I thought would actually need to be mentioned. Plus, I needed something to talk about with this episode. And also another thing that I want to talk about with this episode is the fact that we cut out a shot of Suika's mask after Chrome is facing off against Magma, before we actually get the actual full shot of it. And again, I feel like that's something that could have just easily been in there in the background in the anime, and nobody would have minded it, or but I guess probably nobody would have even noticed as well. So again, I feel like it was probably more done to add tension before Chrome actually does see the mask for himself. But another thing that we get caught as well is Suika's line right here, where she goes, "He's trying so hard to protect Suika's mask so the glass doesn't break." Again, I just love the fact that we just get that line from Suika, showing and basically showing her crying, showing how happy she is that she now actually has friends that she can look up to and she can actually trust, as opposed to the fact that she was probably always ignored, but now she's actually being a major part of the actual established kingdom of science. And again, it was just something that I felt like could have been included, and people would have just been like, "Oh, Suika." But again, like I said, I just need something to talk about, because honestly, those are all the notes that I have on that on episode 14. Not many that I can actually talk about. And we've got to the last note here, which is we basically get we basically get these thoughts cut out from Chrome. I believe that we do get these thoughts cut out with Chrome, which is, yeah, because I'm science user Chrome, I will save Ruru with the power of science. Once I win this match, they'll make me the chief, and I'll transform this village into a kingdom of science. Sunlight and this lens will make fire. I'm betting it all on this. No, I think we actually did get that, but did we get? Yeah. No, I don't think we did. I don't think we did get those thoughts. Yeah, I don't think we did get those thoughts, but no, that would have actually been interesting if Chrome had actually won the Great Bout instead of Senku. Now, it was probably obviously to everyone that Senku was actually going to win the Great Bout, because it all tied back to him. Like, this is his village left behind by his father. But if Chrome had actually won it, that would have been interesting, because we probably wouldn't have gotten Chrome going off on the Great Voyage, and that would have mean leaving one of my favourite characters behind. But again, it would have been interesting if he was actually left behind to actually rebuild civilization based on everything that Senku had taught him over the 2 years that they actually know each other. That actually gets me curious of, like, what would have happened if Chrome had actually stayed behind to be part of the team that actually built up civilization from where they are on Ishigami Village. That would have been interesting, but as it is right now, they're all together, and I couldn't be any more happier that all my favourite characters are in one place to be on this grand adventure and this grand voyage. So now we move on to episode 15, and the first point I want to talk about is we don't get Gen's thoughts right here on Gira, and I'm basically going, of course, our little Giron is the type to promise to run the marathon alongside his friends, but then sprints ahead at the very end. Again, I feel like this could have been added to give more of an insight into what people truly feel, how people truly feel Giron, and as well we get no reaction about Giron from the others, which basically right here. I mean, we do get the reaction, but we don't get what they're saying, which is sounds great. How would we even make that much? There aren't even enough women to make that happen. Basically, Gayron's fantasies, and they're just like debunking it all the time. And I feel like they could have actually included that in, because that would have just added a bit more comedic angle to what we need to basically what we need in this situation right now. We needed a little bit more of a comedic angle, or a little bit of end to the punchline, because there wasn't an end to the punchline of Gayron going, "When I'm chief, every day will be all you can eat ramen feast for the festival, and harems, not just for me, everyone gets a harem." Which, yeah, Giron, you need to tone it down a little bit. And another thing we don't get is Suika's little line here, which is kind of seems like the whole village is united. So basically her just delivering the ultimate punch line to Giron, like, yeah, nobody wanted to be chief after the way you've acted. And again, I feel like that just would have just punctuated it a little bit more to bring to be a bookend to that joke of how Giron just views everyone as just like his prized possession, essentially, basically. Now again, just like Kokko in episode 13 when Senku first enters the village. Yeah, episode 13 when Senku first enters the village. We got another narration here, but again, because they didn't have a narrator, it would have been pretty weird for it to actually just come out of nowhere. So Suika's the one that actually gets the line of Senku got married, and then Senku got divorced. So again, I love the fact that they're just adding in narration to the other characters' dialogues, because I feel like that's naturally what they would do. But also as well, and fun thing to know is that Sawyers, who, let me see if I've got the volume here. Volume. Yeah, here's the volume. So, Sawyers, in case you don't know, guys, for anime only, is that guy right there, the nameless guy who remains nameless until the Treasure Island arc, when we actually find out that he's not actually from Ishigami Village. But yeah, in hindsight, looking through the manga, it would have made more sense for him to actually be in a lot more of the background shots, like what they're doing in the anime. I feel like that's because they didn't have that big poster of every one of the characters that are in the Ishigami Village in there. So I feel like in order to compensate for that, and in order to actually have him make more sense when he actually does pop up and he actually does play a prominent role in the Treasure Island arc, it makes more sense to have more shots of him in the background. He's not doing anything, he's just observing everything, but the fact that he's always in the background, he's always in the back of your mind, like, oh yeah, this guy, I wonder what he's all about. I feel like that's a nice touch that the anime has actually done in order to make it less confusing for people who don't really pay attention or feel like he just comes out of nowhere. Now, one thing that's actually come out, which I feel like could have been a really interesting joke, is this part right here with Senku, where it's basically like Suika going, "You're no devil after all, Senku," carrying Chrome all the way back to the Kingdom of Science and giving him some well-deserved rest before Senku sticks something up Senku basically pee up Chrome's nose, and he's like, yeah, and Kukoku and Suiga like, yeah, he is the devil. And again, I would have loved if they just included that in, because again, it shows Senku's duality of like, yeah, he's a bit of an arsehole, but he's the kind of lovable arsehole that you want to follow as well. And he's egotistical, but he does help people as well. So I feel like if they just included that, it would have just been a great gag that they actually need in that moment in time. And another thing that I really do appreciate with the anime is that a lot of the times in the anime now you'll see Kiron and Giron in the background of several shots, whereas in the manga, if I can actually find it, this part right here, like this part where they actually do complete the antibiotic for Ruri, Kiran and Giran are not there, but in the anime, because they've had such a prominent role with Senku and others, I feel like they felt like, okay, we need to include them here because it's because we feel like they are actually part of the main group of characters, which they are essentially. Even though I don't particularly like Giran, but I do like Kiro. I do feel like they do need to be mandatory to be there, because they've just had such a prominent role at this moment in time in the series that it doesn't make sense for them not to be in that group shot. Now, one thing I'm really disappointed as well is, like here as well with Senku Rock Senku. No, Sunken Rock Senku. Try saying that 3 times fast. Sunken Rock Senku, Sunken Rock Senku, Sunken Rock Senku. But anyway, guys, yeah, like here as well with the cola, we have Mecha Senku explaining the cola, which again, it's not really a big deal, but again, I would have liked to have seen Sunken Rock Senku, just again to get that to get people like, oh, okay, so this is obviously a reference to something, this actual picture. Oh, it's reference to Sunken Rock, and it's the same artist that actually. Oh, okay, so this is more interesting. This is more cool. Now again, it's not really a big deal, but I feel like it would have been nice to just actually include Sunken Rock Senku there, because it looks a lot more cooler than Mecha Senku, in my opinion. Now, Mecha Senku is actually fun, just the fact that we have a robot in a stone world type series. That's just hilarious. But again, I would have appreciated more if it was Sunken Rock Senku. And also as well, in the background shots here, you just have some random people, whereas it's more appropriate in the anime for it to be Ruri's dad with Koyaku and Turquoise and Jasper to be the ones doing the reaction, because they have more of an impact than just the random background villagers that we don't really have any focus on other than their actual names when we get that nice panel spread. And also the last thing that I want to talk about with the episode as well is that during when Ruri's out in the field, like right here, and everyone's happy for it, we have an unheard conversation between Ruri and her father regarding Senku. Now, we don't know what that conversation is, but it could have been like, "See, father, Senku actually healed me. He did everything here, and I am grateful for it." And that's probably all that was said before Ruri gets her tomboyish nature from Kokoko and just starts speeding off. But anyway, guys, those were those episodes, and a lot of people were like curious about the cliffhanger of the episode where it's like, "You're Senku Ishigami, aren't you?" And I just loved trolling people in the comment section on that just watch the anime and saying like, well, it's all about BBR spoilers. But anyway, guys, yeah, so be excited, because we're going to get the origin of the Ishigami village coming up in the next possibly 1 or 2 episodes, depending on how long they decide to take it. But anyway, guys, what did you think of these episodes? Personally, I enjoyed them. I thought the Grand Bout was really well done, and I was surprised of how quick it went by with just these 3 episodes. But anyway, guys, what did you think? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lush Luke signing off. Later, guys. And yes, I did have a haircut.